Okay, I'm going to call this meeting to order. The February 1st, 2022 Bike Committee for the City of Fitchburg. And the first thing we're supposed to be taking roll call at these meetings. So I'll start off by taking roll call. Phil, do you want to, since you've got the big thing, I can't barely see the big one. So would you mind calling the roll this morning, please?
Um, sure. Mark
Start in
Hamilton,
the upper left. Okay. Yeah, I'm here.
Miranda Beyer,
Here.
Andy Potts,
Here.
Angie Lucas,
Here.
Joey Mulkowski,
Here.
and I believe
Hi,
we
Joe.
still don't have Joe Maldonado. Okay,
I do
so
not.
it
I
looks
do
like
not see
everybody
him.
else is here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. This meeting is called to order. Go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm trying to check in.
Oh, okay. So our first order of business is to approve the draft minutes from December 7th, 2021. They were attached to the meeting agenda. Has everybody had a chance to look at them? And is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, we'll move approval. Looking for a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Andy made a motion to move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Angie. Okay, is there any further discussion on the motion or the minutes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Are there any public appearances for non-agenda items? Hearing none. Phil, I'm going to turn this over to you. You've got resolution R1822. So the floor is yours.
All right, go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so hopefully you all had a chance to check this out. Myself a tab here to pull up the resolution online as well. So this is a resolution related to the mayor's spending plan for, we had two different one-time funding buckets that have been made available to us. One was about $3 million from the American Rescue Plan Act, the Pandemic Recovery Act from last spring. The second is the closure of one of the TID districts in Fitchburg, TID number 6. The combination of those I believe it's around $6 million for Fitchburg in one-time funds that we're looking to figure out how exactly we want to spend those, what the priorities are going to be. So the mayor released his plan, and this is a resolution to approve the mayor's ARPA TID closure investment plan. Council still has yet to review this. I believe in February they're going to have a meeting to discuss this. They'll have a public meeting to get input from residents, but this is an opportunity for us to talk through the document and either say we're in support of it or let council know if there's anything that we would want to change. So I don't know, did everybody get a chance to look through this plan here?
Yeah, I had a chance to look through it. I'll jump in here first. I had a couple of comments. One is Angie will be pleased. One of the things he identified was to fix Wayland Road with bike lanes, and it was kind of vague because it doesn't say if it's going all the way down to Fitzrona Road or it's just going to Mulshore Road from Fish Hatch. And he doesn't have amounts in there. The second thing is he mentioned phase 2 of the bike sharing. And so I guess I'd ask you, Phil, so is his plan to take that 80-20 grant and cover that second 20% if we get the grant? So those are my two questions, but he didn't have amounts listed. It was just general statements. So, and I think there's one missing. We talked with Joe Maldonado, Phil, about bike parking and the need to increase our APRB, I think that's what it is, bike parking across the city, particularly in some of our public areas. And I didn't see that in there, and maybe it's too detailed to get to there, but he does mention biking a couple times. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on it. Others?
I should have mentioned that kind of as as the overview here, that we did have funding here provided for bike lanes, the remainder of Wayland Road. That's part of this $1.8 million bucket in city infrastructure. Additionally, there is funding for broad sustainability initiatives, $300,000 total, investing in sustainability goals. And one of the elements of that group includes this bike sharing program. So there are several things in here, additional funding for a sustainability plan beyond what's already been allocated, some energy efficiency spending, but then also bike sharing. And one of the things that the mayor does call out here is local sharing for grant matching. So Mark, that's my interpretation, is that if this is approved, that let's see. I wonder if this was just from a conversation with the mayor. I thought I saw this in the text here, but I'm not locating it. But yeah, that is my understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
That is my understanding, is that this funding, we already have phase one budgeted for in 2022 with that $50,000.
Yeah.
So this would provide, if needed, the additional 20% for matching the state grant.
Yeah. So then my second question goes back to Wayland, because we've had a lot of discussions about Wayland Road, and I think we need to clarify, does his plan cover, again, and Angie, you correct me if I'm wrong, all the way from Fish Hatch to Muchler, or all the way from Fish Hatch to Fitzrona Road?
It really only needs to go from Fish Hatchery to Muchler.
That's kind of what I figured.
And then from technically Seminole to Fitzrona.
Right. Yeah, because that's already been done between Muchler and Fish Hatch, but because you have the same thing when you're going west on Wayland past Seminole, you get the thing goes away at the top of the hill. So
it goes away and comes back in, and it goes away and
Right.
it comes back in.
Yeah. So Phil, you might want to ask a clarification on that. How far is it going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Steve.
So several things. I'll start with Wayland. I think that you should actually propose modifying this document to clarify these things.
Yes.
So I would definitely put on the remainder of Wayland Road, instead of the remainder, it's not proposed and would not be useful to go from Fish Hatchery to Kane or into the dead end at the east. So I would—
That's
worthwhile.
Worthless.
I would say instead of the remainder, Wayland Road from South Fish Hatchery to Fitzrona Road. I would clarify, bike lanes are generally urban things where you have curb, and bike lanes are not compatible with other uses, whereas paved shoulders, which is what we're talking about here, are multi-use. They serve both for biking, walking, and motor vehicle breakdowns. So I would put paved shoulders, even though there are some curbs where slopes require it.
Right.
Generally, those are paved shoulders.
Yep.
I do support the water fountain, and on the matching funds, I see 3 points. Transportation Alternatives Program is a federal grant administered by the state, and the money that was allocated through 2022, the deadline was yesterday. However, there's likely to be an additional, $7 or $8 million per year that's going to be administered by the state, and that deadline through 2026 is going to be June. And I recommend that the city of Fitchburg, with all the help that they can garner, such as Bike Fed or Bike Fitchburg, apply for the remaining stations that we want in Fitchburg for bike share, and that it be called out here. Matching funds for TAP grant for bike share stations. Secondly, there's no mention here of the needs that we have for the Fitchburg Greenway project, Fitchburg Greenway system proposal that I presented here about a year ago. And I've done some work, and it looks like it's going to be like $4,500 for the 4.6 miles of the Fish Hatchery Road corridor. And that's just for street signs, not wayfinding or confirmation signs, just marking the path where it crosses roads. So I am anticipating going after a AARP livability grant and a Dane County Bicycle Association grant. Dane County Bicycle Association has about $10,000 a year, and the ARPA grant started about $15,000. So I do not know whether these require matching, but if they do require matching, we would need matching for those. And if they don't require matching and you offer to match, say 1 to 3 or 1 to 4, 20 or 25%, then your application's a lot stronger. So I would put those in there under capital costs to address various priority projects.
Steve,
So-
let me clear. Go ahead,
Okay.
Angie.
Okay, I was gonna say, going back to Wayland, Fitchburg or Hatchery to Muchler, and then Fitchburg Road to Fitchrona Road are the two sections. We do
Yeah.
go from Seminole to Fitchburg Road. We need to go from Fitchburg to Fitchrona.
Right.
And then the other thing is the share the road signs that do nothing need to be something different, because
So
They don't-
I do think for some of these, like the text does specify Wayland Road connecting along a route frequently traveled by cyclers. I may be wrong on this. My interpretation of this is that none of these are specific project plans, and these are details that we would hammer out once it comes time to actually allocating this funding. But
Well, it would
I
be-
think the details of like specifically where the Wayland improvement would start and stop is probably more detailed than they're going
Than
to
they
include
need.
in this plan, is my
Okay.
guess. I
Well,
can
it would-
confirm that, but
it would
that's my.
behoove us to make sure that we get to have a say before
Mhm.
Right.
somebody else
Right.
decides it and we're out of it again.
Right, I would agree with Angie on that, and Steve said the same thing. We need to validate, just as because I assume you're going to ask us to pass this, right, Phil?
That's correct.
Okay, so I would say we put that in there. Steve, I need to answer you the second part. The city submitted a TAP grant on Friday for phase 2 of the bike sharing, and the spots have been identified as a part of that grant process. So that's done. If there's more money that comes, it's a different arrangement, but we spent a lot of time. I got to thank Phil publicly. We spent a lot of time, even though he was doing another grant, to get a grant together. And we talked to a lot of folks in the city and the chamber to get this moving forward. So I'm happy we've got something in, and I'm also optimistic we're going to get something back. The other part about the Greenway, again, we supported it in concept, but I think we've turfed it back to the Parks Department, as I recall, and we haven't had any more discussion on that for the past couple of months. So that's trying to respond to the issues that you raised, Steve.
Thanks for getting that grant in. That's terrific news. I'll start my lobbying to get the money back. And I will be speaking to Parks Commission on Thursday night, but I would very much be happy for the Bicycle Committee support of the idea.
Well, I think we already passed it conceptually, Steve. You did get support a couple months ago of it. You didn't get any money from us or asked for, but we
I'll
supported
tell
the
them that.
concept. Well, we did support it. We passed it. So it's in our minutes. Phil, anything else along this project?
I don't think, unless there's anything that I missed, I don't think there was anything else in here that was cycling related.
Yeah.
Thank you, Phil.
I looked at it. Yeah. Thank you very much, Phil. I didn't see anything else either. So I guess I would propose that we make some kind of mention of the construct of Wayland.
Okay.
And then I would, in our approval of it, and then I would entertain a motion to approve the amendment, send it back to the city.
Okay. So kind of just a friendly amendment, just ensuring that the bike committee will be
Yes.
involved in.
Yes. And then it should go all the way. It should be full all the way, as Angie said, from Fish Hats to Fitchrona.
And the majority of it's done. It's just
Yes.
the two tail ends of it.
Yes.
And Mark, I
Okay.
guess back to
Yes, Andy.
your
Go
idea
ahead,
about
Andy.
parking. I guess, did we want to specify within sustainability that bike parking would be part of that as well?
Well, yeah, I would like to see that in there because this is one of the things as we look on our goal journey that we heard about. And Steve has been working to prepare a process to look at the bike parking and how much it's gone up or gone down since the last objective for a dashboard. And I talked to Maldonado. He asked 2 weeks ago, what should I put in here? And Phil and I both told him the TAP grant, and then the second part was bike parking in some of our places around the city, particularly the city areas. So, yeah, I guess I think as Phil said, it's still kind of fluffing itself out, but there is sustainability and there is money there. I think we as a committee need to say that's what we'd like to see done as well. So I don't know. What do the rest of you think about that?
I mean, I think it makes sense to include it. And kind of the
Me
same
too.
way we're saying additional bike shelters, we could say additional bike parking.
Right. And there really isn't, so to speak. So Phil, would you mind adding that as a suggestion as well?
Yeah, I can do that. Andy, having been on council, is this something, should we have specific language in these amendments to pass along with this, or just kind of approve this with our sort of soft amendments, and I'll just chat with Misty or the mayor to pass along these thoughts? What would be the proper approach there?
I mean, I think if we were to specify that we want it as part of, what is this, group number 8, that we just want to specify that additional bike parking, and then whatever the number is for the Whalen Road project to specify the project limits. I think that would be sufficient.
And I would get Joe involved. We also know that we think Joe says he has Julia and Gabriella's support. So we've got, a portion of the council, but I would make sure Joe needs to, I think, talk this up too, Phil. Yeah, Steve.
So here's,
Hold on, Phil.
With respect to bike parking, we're in very good shape for civic properties except fire station number 1 and parks. The new fire stations have terrific bike parking. The city campus does. There's a couple of wave racks that could be replaced, but our main need is parks, where people right now are throwing their bikes on the grass. I would especially point out up by the Dream Court on Western Hills Park. That's a very popular park now that Dream Court is in, but there's, people throw their bikes in the grass or lean them up against trees.
Okay. So with those, I guess I'm going to call them whatever Andy called them, friendly amendments or friendly suggestions. We entertain a motion to pass this to pass the support of this amendment.
I'll see if I can do this with a toddler here. I would make a motion to approve the resolution with the amendments on the project limits for Whalen Road and the addition of bike parking.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, I think that was Angie.
Yep, it was.
Okay, thank you, Angie. Is there any more discussion on this issue? Hearing none, we'll move to voting. All those in approval signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
I heard that, Andy. Opposed, same sign. Okay, Phil, you got it. You can go.
all right, thanks everybody. Back to the agenda packet here. So the next item is bicycling related events in and around Fitchburg. It being winter, it's a little bit on the light side, as tends to be the case. We've got February 11th is International Winter Bike to Work Day. I've been looking to see if there's anything official being promoted around the Madison Fitchburg area. I haven't seen it yet, but that is something to celebrate, promote among your friends. National Bike Month is still out in May. I'll wait for a little bit more information on when and how Madison will specifically celebrate and promote that one. But I think it'll be a pretty standard calendar there. Hoping this year we'll get back to some of our standard bike to work week stations, and we'll kind of see how that progresses as we get into the later spring. There was the bike swap at the Alliance Center a couple weekends ago, but the annual Bike-orama has been pushed off another year again. So hoping that March of next year will bring the Bike-orama event back to the Alliance. And we'll just see if we're able to get that in next spring. Steve, you had a comment?
Yep. So an event or commuter station / end of work cocktail time was just announced for Friday the 11th. It should be on the Madison Bikes calendar. So that's a end of the workday event for the International Winter Bike Day in the Northern Hemisphere. Wisconsin Bike Week, which is promoted by the Bike Fed and Madison Bikes, will be June 4th through 11th, kicking off with Ride to Drive. And on the Tuesday of that week will be our commuter station at the Bellow Underground. And they expect, COVID permitting, to do the usual events in Law Park, such as bacon on the bike path and brat cakes and things like that. So that will be the premier celebration of biking in our area. There will also be Cycle September again this year, but it will not be locally promoted as it has in the last few years. That takes like $50,000 that Love to Ride wants to do a local promotion. So it will be part of the National Bike Challenge.
All right, thanks, Steve.
Keep going, Phil. Agenda's yours.
All right. Next up, we have projects impacting the bike network, and it looks like we've got Andrew here to help us out with this one. So it's, again, wintertime, so a little bit smaller list here for public works projects. Got some things. It's kind of nice for the first time in about two and a half years now. We haven't had the Fish Hatchery Road project on here. Got that fully completed. Sain Road is still in the design phase, design planning. And just so we're expecting transportation project plats there. Yeah, that continues. McCoy and County Highway rework. We're still waiting a resolution to go to council to get approval on picking a bid. So that's where we are with this intersection project.
Phil, can I stop you there? I have a question.
Sure.
On that one, there was a talk at one time of going straight up the hill there, right across from the intersection, instead of going around to the way you're going up now. Has that been taken off the table? Is it still a later date?
Or do you know? Are we talking about up at McCoy? Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. Right there.
So, yep. And so that's the plan, that we basically be connecting South Sain to Sain there straight away. So you go straight north there, right. And then
and so McCoy will be a T intersection.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. And so that's a phase 2 in terms of the CIP project, and that's a federally funded highway safety improvement project to be, right now it's planned in 2024. So it's gonna be the phase 2 construction of this project. But yeah, that is the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, and then the other thing is just a quick update on the flashing beacons for the bike ped on Seminole Highway. Andrew, let me know if I missed anything here. My understanding is that we knew we were pretty close to having all the equipment required for both of these signalized intersections at Cannonball and at Cap City Trail. Andrew reached out to the manufacturer to get the final couple pieces, and it sounds like they don't make compatible equipment anymore. So it would be a larger purchase to get a full second station put together. So am I correct that right now we have definitely enough equipment to mark one of these intersections?
That's right.
And that's it for the time being.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there's a few other factors with some utilities up there, the Cannonball, and also kind of multi-jurisdictional nature of it being Madison as well that further complicate the Cannonball. So I think right now the plan is really just to make sure we get the Cap City Trail done this spring and then include a CIP effort for next year that we'll be coordinating with Madison on for that crossing A that's mentioned, that's shown here. So we would like to get them both done with our existing equipment. I think just between those three factors, it's unfortunate, but I think that northern crossing is going to have to wait until next year.
Andrew, what's the complication with with Madison? Their boundary is not nearby, and we're under the intergovernmental agreement. We have full responsibility for that portion of the Cannonball. Is it the water line that they own that runs under there?
So there's an agreement, yeah, that you're mentioning that divvies up the maintenance responsibility. So I believe it does. There is a changeover point at Seminole that.
No, the changeover point is at the entrance to the Arbor Hills neighborhood, 800 feet west of Post Road.
So I can clarify that, but I do have the agreement, and it seems pretty clear. But we can certainly, I think that's one of the three issues that we want to make sure that that we're clear on before we get going with the project. But thanks. I know those are always tough between both right of way and maintenance responsibilities. They're not always the same break point.
I was wrong. It's not off the map. If you go from point A to the right past the word Cannonball, at the end of the Arboretum right there, that path is the change of jurisdiction. And you can tell when you're in the field because their stretch is lighted and ours is not.
Okay, anything else on our projects, Andrew and Phil?
No, I think that's it for right now. However, that does kind of lead us right into, right now we still kind of have the same map here for additional projects for 2022 and 2023 that we have been looking at for several months. The next agenda item, 5D, is reviewing, that's not it. I'll stop my screen share here for a moment. It is reviewing projects from the bike ped plan and from the comprehensive plan update. So I'm hoping everybody had a chance to look through those documents, at least doing some skimming. And this was, I know we mentioned last year that Andrew's kind of looking for kind of the bike committee's sense of what are the top priorities for addressing any gaps in the existing bike network or any expansions that we'd like to see that really should be on his radar, that should be prioritized in the coming years.
Comments?
So
I just feel like,
do you want to kick that off, or somebody else?
Well, I got to be candid here. I looked at this thing when it came out and got passed, and I gave you a bunch of just laundry list items. I haven't looked back at it since I don't have it in front of me, and it's hard to look at my iPad. I would comment initially that we be sure that we stick to our goals, which is safety. And second of all, and I think Andrew has done a good job of getting us going with this, is that the committee's involved in planning for new projects, road projects, as they impact the bike lanes, bike safety, et cetera. So I think those are my two on the top of my head. But again, I got to be blunt. I looked at this before I left town. I don't have it in front of me.
I think that we have to really emphasize that the focus needs to be obviously biking, but the complete streets, walkers, joggers, anybody going out to take their garbage out. That the streets are safe for everybody and anybody. And that includes cars, of course. So if we could somehow, I know that there are people who are just like, well, that's just because you're a biker. No, it's because I'm a human being and I own property in the city of Fitchburg and I'd like to have everybody be safe. You know, I see so many things that are getting done that are out of Andrew's control because it might be Public Works that's doing things. But everybody needs to be thinking about complete streets and every single user we have and having accessibility. They keep talking about wanting to bring all the neighborhoods together and be a city. And, you know, my house is in an area that they just redid a road and they didn't care. So, and they won't do it again anytime soon. So we somehow need to change people's mindset from, oh, that's just for bikers, to this is for all of us, everybody, you know?
I think going to Angie's point, excuse me, everybody, for tardiness. I'm dropping my daughter off. I think part of it also comes with kind of what sort of projects get referred to us. And I know that's been a complaint in the past that, like, you know, a project is being worked on and it doesn't get referred to bike committee. So I can catch stuff like in real time as it happens, or catch stuff after the fact. But I'm wondering what the sort of big fix for that would be.
Joe, I think you hit it on the head. Oh, sorry.
Plan.
Sorry.
No,
I think
as it relates to this bike and ped plan. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. I think you hit it on the head. We have to look and understand what's in the plan as it relates to everything Angie said. She's got a good point, but as it intersects, we ask to be at the table, whether it come for us for approval or you sit up at the front, like we've asked with Andrew McFadden for street planning, that he brings that stuff to us before it begins to go through the Department of Public Works, because when it gets there and gets to the alders, it can frequently be a done deal. And I think we lived and learned from the Wayland Road thing, which none of us were involved in. But more importantly is that we need to ensure that we don't make those mistakes and just have input. I think it's called a bike ped plan for a reason. It'd be interesting to know what the pedestrian component, Phil, from the city's talking about, if anything. I don't know if they are.
You know, I'm not looking to add more work on to Andrew McFadden. Sorry, Andrew, but maybe before Public Works goes and plans a big project, they need to at least just check in with him, because he knows where we're coming from. And I think he takes that into consideration. So maybe he could just say, hey, have you talked to, or have you shared with, you know, have you thought of, you know, kinds of things.
Yeah, Steve.
So looking at this project 3319 map in the packet, to be quite specific, there's a couple of roads that are marked for future resurface that should get paved shoulders. Schneider Road, Orchard Road, not Purcell Road, because that doesn't get any traffic. Fitchrona Road, when it gets resurfaced, should get paved shoulders. And I would point out two what I think are priority areas. Cyene Road, that is north of McCoy, connecting up to Post Road. That is a very important connection now that we're growing so much on the east side and the Post Road goes through. And Fitchrona Road between Lacey and Nesbitt desperately needs bike lanes. I know that that's got to be an intergovernmental agreement with the town of Verona to fix that, but we just got to make sure that that has paved shoulders done.
That one, at least, I think Fitchrona Road we have plans on is my recollection. I feel like I remember.
It didn't come to the bike committee.
Well, right, not anything imminent, but my recollection was even before Andrew joined us that I thought I remember talking with Bill about plans to redo Fitchrona Road from Lacey to Nesbitt, and that we were looking at, maybe this was a conversation with you, Andrew, that we were trying to talk about how to get wider sidewalk / multi-use paths along the side, just because there is a concern there with some wetland area that would create some considerations for that construction, but I don't know that there's a timeline on the Fitch-Verona project right now. It's just that that's something we've been looking at.
I can't tell which shade of violet it is, but it's either 2022 or 2024.
I believe that would be the 2022 lilac.
And the drainage there is a nightmare.
Yep, just to clarify. Yeah, so Fitchburg Road, so that stretch from Nesbitt to Lacey is in the CIP. So as you mentioned, it's a project in coordination with the town of Verona, and they are kind of a pay-go system. So just because that's a pretty big stretch, and a lot of that, especially south of there, is the town of Verona. We've been pushing it off a little bit here and there. So, but we did just apply for LRIP grant for that stretch all the way down to Tonto. So, pending what we hear back there, it could go slightly sooner, but we're looking at likely construction 2025 right now. And then the North Saline, north of McCoy, I believe that's in the CIP for 2029 currently. Again, with all the grant funding, it might be able to be shifted up. But I think that the decision there is either on-street bike lanes or a shared use path. But yeah, just with the E-way, there's definitely a lot of environmental complexity. And so that's one of the reasons why we shifted it out. But from a pavement condition and a bicycle connectivity perspective, it's definitely a very important project, and we'd like to shift it up if we can.
Well, again, I think, go ahead, Angie.
Okay, a couple of the things like Steve just mentioned, there's not a need to do things to Purcell because of the lack of traffic. And I would completely agree. Where I could see doing something on Purcell, which would probably take some leftover pavement, and that's about it, would be as you're coming from the Badger, the gravel part of the Badger Trail onto the paved section, people are coming from that parking lot, and the Badger Trail is just that flat, it's just a straight section. If there was some kind of an apron where it was just wider on both sides out to Purcell, people could cut in onto the paved Badger or cut out much more easily. I see a lot of people colliding with each other or close to colliding with each other, or that area is a real hang up. And all it would take would be a slight bit of extra pavement to just make that an apron instead of a straight crossing at Purcell Road. And I know that people would be beyond thrilled if that could be fixed.
Andy Potts suggested this 2 years ago. So I think Andrew McFadden, as you look at this, you may want to follow up on what she's saying, because again, going out and riding, it is dangerous, and you got to deal with cars and bikes going both ways. So that wouldn't cost much other than they make sure it drains properly.
Right. The only other spot like that really is an issue is if you are coming from Wayland Road, you're on the paved Badger Trail heading towards Lacey, where you can cut up. Actually, I'm sorry. If you're coming from Lacey towards Wayland, you can cut up on the little cutaway. There's a paved area up to Vroman Road, and it curves left or curves right and goes, then allows you to be at that intersection. You cross over Seminole and you go right up the hill on Vroman. It doesn't do the same coming from Wayland. And so if you're coming from Wayland, you have to go straight, and then you have to kind of loop around. And that's an area where I've seen collisions. And it's an area where I see people getting off their bikes and walking around that, because it's not an easy thing to make that. I think when the Badger was paved there, they didn't anticipate the amount of traffic that might be coming down the Badger Trail and then wanting to get on Vroman Road to head like towards Verona. And so if there was some way that could not only be a curve up on from the Lacey Road direction, but also a curve up and down from the Wayland Road direction, that would be another area that I think people would be absolutely thrilled if we could fix that. Now, I think there's some.
You're just talking about mirroring this.
There.
Are you kind of just talking about mirroring this S ramp coming from the
right,
other way?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly. But I think there might be some drainage stuff there, so I don't really know about that. But I know that that's another area that I've seen a lot of bottlenecks and I've seen people falling off their bikes and stuff.
Speaking of Roman, I noticed, and I forgot to mention, that Grandview is up for resurfacing at some nebulous future date, and that's another one that could desperately use paved shoulders.
Yep.
And of course, that would also mean Roman.
I used to ride that every day. It would be nice.
Back when the Badger was first paved, that S-curve was designed because to go straight east from Roman Road to hit the trail would have been too steep. And
Okay.
so the determination was that most folks were coming from the north or going to the north, and that a double ramp was not needed, but maybe it is.
I would say it is, personally. It would also be nice that somebody is like plowing or clearing that Badger Trail in that section, but they never clear that ramp up to Roman. That's usually a foot of snow walking through it in the winter.
Is that, Andrew, is that DNR maintenance clearing the BST?
From my understanding, yeah. And I think that this stretch might have been a volunteer that I think
Okay.
I think might have fallen off this
I
year.
can walk through the snow. I'm just saying if we're.
Yeah, I was wondering if that would be a weird, like, if that'd be a weird gap that they're covering the BST, we're covering Seminole, and nobody's decided to take that ramp, but.
Yep, that definitely could be it.
I would recommend that Mark and Phil put on the agenda for a future meeting, snow and ice control, because I don't want to talk about it too much now. But I think that having the Cap City Dane County Parks Maintenance and the paved part of the Badger and Military Ridge done by volunteers has proved to be totally inadequate this winter. And there are some options that we should think about. They cost money, but we can, there's money available as well. So.
Hey, Phil.
So go ahead, Andy. Or Tom. I'm sorry, who's on?
That was Joe Maldonado.
That was me. So, when you had first sent this email back in December for us to look over everything, I did. And I mean, there's a lot to look at, and we could spend our time on literally anything here.
Sure.
But I'm wondering, from your perspective as staff, what do you feel, just grand 20,000 foot view, what are the things that have worked from this, and what are the things that we've specifically you recommend that are undone, like big picture things that are undone that we really need to make happen? Not necessarily specific intersections or roads or anything like that, but more just like, what as a city are we lacking in this plan?
I think my sense of what the city has most successfully and intentionally addressed from this bike and pedestrian plan, one is being more intentional about considering the addition of bike infrastructure every time we have a road project. My understanding is prior to this plan, we were a little bit more spotty on that, and that's been a bigger success since then. I think creating the bike committee is one of the biggest things, is that this plan put a governmental body in place, a citizen body in place, to keep tabs on this and address it. I think that it may be, you're right, there's a lot of stuff in here. I'll admit that I'm not familiar with all of it myself. I've definitely gone through the document a couple times. I think Andrew might have even gone through it more than I have at this point. But there are some specific things that probably haven't been addressed quite as well. One of them is the bike parking, and that's one where Steve called out that any new facility that gets built, again, similar with road reconstruction projects, we're adding parking at any new building. I don't know that we've gone back and addressed any gaps in our high quality bike parking at existing facilities. So parks that we already have in place, and the the old fire station public safety building. And then I think some things with 3 different staff members in the last 3 years dealing with kind of bicycling interests, back to the previous two sustainability specialists and myself. I think that some of the policy approaches maybe have occasionally fallen through the gaps. So last year we finally addressed the mandatory bike registration ordinance. I see something else in here about bicycling on sidewalks and whether we, creating a citywide policy on how to handle biking on sidewalks. I think there are a couple things along those lines that maybe have not been at the fore of conversation, and certainly are things that could be discussed. I know that one thing that Mark discussed early on in my tenure here, and this is before we created the working group to deal with the push for gold in the bicycle friendly communities, is Mark had talked about possibly creating a working group to simply review this document on a regular basis. It is something that there's a lot in here. It is a lot to ask all of you to be familiar with all the ins and outs of it and know where we're falling short. But Mark had suggested creating a smaller working group from this committee to kind of review the document and come back with a review on what have we succeeded at, what do we still have left to do. And I don't know that I want to ask a committee of 4 citizen members, or is it 5 citizen members to have 2 separate active working groups. But I think certainly once we get past, once we succeed in getting that gold bicycle friendly community designation, it might be worthwhile to then follow that up with a new working group to look at this and see where else we have gaps. And I think that our push for gold is addressing some of those, but not all of them.
Yeah, get us the platinum.
Yeah.
I'll answer this a little different way, Phil. I think we've got Joe, myself, you, and Andy Potts actively engaged in working on the gold stuff. And I think Joe's also helping us with the part of the meeting he missed this morning about ARPA and the closing of the TID grant at his alder level. Do we want to make, I think a small group, it won't take that long to look at it. To have it ongoing is a different thing. But I looked at that thing, like you said, Phil, before you arrived on the scene, and you can go through there and see where bike and stuff is mentioned, and you can tell what it falls under, whether it's safety, whether it's advocacy, et cetera. I still think to tee it up, we can take on 2 projects like this. I mean, so I'm coming at it a little bit different. Is there anybody that has an interest in looking at it, as Phil suggested? And then where do we go from there? If not, that's okay too. But I do think it's a way to keep all our committee engaged, and it's an important thing.
Yeah, I'll commit to that for sure. But I think hearing what you all said, Phil, and just doing another skim of this, there's definitely stuff we've done. There's stuff we're working on, and there's stuff to be done. I'm most interested in, hopefully if we write this grant and get it and we get some funds in the ARPA plan, we can move towards that B-cycle goal. I'll also say, just from my own position, it was incredibly helpful as we looked at Lacey Road to have the advocacy of not only folks from the bike committee, but also folks from Bike Fitchburg, because there was a very clear and organized plan of why this is exactly important and what exactly needs to be focused on here to ensure that people are safe. And I think that was like a key example of how not only this committee, but also like the bike interests within Fitchburg can, help ensure that when we take on projects, we're taking bike, cyclists and walkers and everything into consideration. So I think, more of that needs to happen, especially on these larger projects, so that we don't miss opportunities to keep people safe. but I'm definitely interested in, you know, regularly reviewing this plan and making sure that we're living up to it. And if there's stuff that's not as relevant anymore, you know, being okay with saying we're not going to focus on that.
Sure. And I'll say I unfortunately Andrew just left. I wanted to get this in while he was still on the call, so I'll have to let him know later. Andrew has been fantastic at his awareness of these issues. He is familiar kind of front to back with the bike ped plan. There are multiple times that he has come to me and mentioned things that I had overlooked when I was looking through it. He really understands this document well, and he is committed to doing everything he can to see its goals through. So I think he's been a really strong advocate for bicycling interests in the city as well, understanding he has a lot of different considerations that he's got to balance. But I think that I think he has been, you know, really just good at his role in general, but especially from the bike committee perspective. I've appreciated having Andrew in that role. I think that I don't want to step too far into advocating anything as a city staffer. I don't know where something might get over the line, but I'll at least say that as a bicycle committee, I think that there are places also where there are intersecting interests with other committees, and I think that, you know, when we think about what makes a good bicycling city, a lot of it is the bicycling infrastructure, it's the parking, but it's also things about like, how is the city developed? Is the city built in a way that people are bikeable to where they want to get, not just because there are lanes there, but because not everybody is going to do a 5-mile bike trip to go to work, to go to a coffee shop, things like that. And these aren't areas that the bicycle committee oversees, but I think they're areas where, they're areas where folks who are passionate about cycling and live in Fitchburg, not just in the bicycle committee, but other residents, I think have the ability to weigh in on things beyond just, did we get the multi-use path on this particular road? And I think some of those areas of overlap also, I think they do get attention, but I think that's appropriate, and I think it would be helpful to even put a little bit more focus on that. You know, thinking about just kind of the whole nature of the city, and do we feel like right now it is supporting the cycling that we want to do? And if so, great, let's keep encouraging that. If not, let's look at things that we can maybe raise some awareness about where there might be gaps in that as well. You know, sorry.
You had brought up an interesting point as well, about, and you know, I think we had a conversation about this offline, but for example, right, we have bike giveaways, and in those bike giveaways, we have to think like who we're giving bikes away to. Like, is there a safe place, weatherproof place to be able to store your bike if you're not a homeowner? I mean, like all those little, like just details, I think about as well. And I also think about the fact that, you know, we want somebody, not just sort of like your diehards like me or Andy or Steve, you know, who can, you know, knock out 20-30 miles in a sitting, but like is a mother or a you know, somebody who's differently abled, or somebody who, you know, just like their life circumstances won't allow them to be able to do stuff like that. Can anybody get around easily in whatever way that they choose, or whatever way is comfortable for them in our city? Like, that's, I think, the overarching focus that I have bringing to this table. So I appreciate your comments.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that I really appreciate about the potential for the bike share program is that for folks who just what Joe was referencing is he engaged me and Mark on a question about additional projects that might need attention, and I was like, well, we do this bike giveaway, but if I live in a small apartment building and can't put a bike in my front hallway and I don't have maybe storage in the basement, like what do I do with that bike now? I can put it outside, but even if I live in a place where I'm not worried about the bike being stolen, well, it's going to get rained and snowed on. Am I really going to have a high quality bike for the long haul? So kind of thinking about ways that not just the network is accessible because it's close to you, but because you have a way to utilize it. I'm excited about bike share for that reason, that provides that opportunity for people. Now, there are other barriers that we have to make sure that we're looking to address with something like bike share. Make sure that it's not a financial hurdle for somebody who isn't able to afford the passes, things like that. But that is definitely a place where I'm really excited that we have the potential to expand that access in that way. But yeah, I'm sure it's one of the frustrating but exciting things, I guess, is that we're never going to solve it. We're always going to have something to do. There's always going to be more for us to put our energy and effort into, which is, blessing and a curse.
So Phil, maybe a suggestion without forming a separate group is make a standing agenda item on our meetings to talk about one component of it, whether it be safety or whatever, and then it stays in our forefront, and Joe or you from the city or even Andrew can come and say, hey, this is coming up, and it fits within the plan. Because I think the plan is also what gives us the fact that we can get a little noisy once in a while, but the plan gives us that's our okay to work. That is our mantra to move forward. And maybe you do it that way. Just kind of blend it into the fabric of what we do.
And I want to be careful not to create too many standing items in the agenda just because we've already got 3 or 4 in an hour and a half meeting. I want to make sure that there is time for other things that come up every couple months. But certainly that could be blended into the, we have one item for public works projects impacting the network, especially in lighter months like this one where there's only a couple projects, that could be expanded, and we kind of talk a little bit more broadly about anything that is pertinent at that time from the bike ped plan.
I'm not wedded to just an idea. Sorry.
Sure.
I'm sorry.
I think over the long run, it would be good to, right now we're less than 5 years out from this plan having been created. I think we get to the 10-year mark, we probably want to do a broader, more thorough evaluation of how we've done it at implementing the plan, and if we want to release an update to it. Probably we're too soon for that at this point, but yeah, something like that, a regular agenda update might be appropriate.
Sounds good. Anything else, Phil, under that item, under number 4?
Not from me. Certainly if anybody else has anything else to talk about with this, I was kind of anticipating that it would be a little bit more discussion of specifics, but I think this is a good, valuable conversation as well.
Okay, well, if we have Mr. Thompson with us, we will move on to number 5, the North Fish Hatch Hub. Are you there, Wade?
Yes, Mr. Thompson is here, Mark. You bet.
Hello, Mr. Thompson.
Thanks for having me, Bike Committee. And I will, Wade Thompson with the city's planning department. Scott Endel, our parks director, is here as well. So we're going to just give you a quick overview of the hub project. I think folks are probably familiar with that. But Phil, is that all right if I share my screen?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks, Wade.
Hopefully folks can see a PowerPoint. Actually, 1 sec. Bear with me. All right, we'll try that again. All right. So again, we're talking North Fishhatchery Road Hub, and more specifically, our phase one final design. And I just want to quickly talk, I think folks are probably generally familiar with what we're calling our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative. I'll use the acronym HNI, but the hub is an important piece of that initiative. So I just want to quickly give that big picture. I will talk quickly about the neighborhood that the hub is located in, our North Fishhatch neighborhood. Again, I think a neighborhood folks are familiar with. And then we'll talk quickly about the hub planning process, some of the phase one components, and then more specifically about the design, and then one feature of the design that I think this committee will be especially interested in. So again, our Healthy Neighborhoods Initiative is about 3 neighborhoods in our northern tier. I would categorize it as generally a strategic city approach to do better in those neighborhoods. Those neighborhoods have traditionally been underserved. And again, the HNI is really about getting back into those neighborhoods and investing in those neighborhoods. And one of those neighborhoods is our North Fishhatch neighborhood. So more specifically about that neighborhood, it's our gateway, very busy corridor, approximately 50,000 cars per day, one of the busiest in the region. A large percent of our population lives in that neighborhood, approximately 11%, with more on the way. We share a border with Southern Madison up there. In terms of the land use, I would call it, well, it is 100% multifamily residential, both aging and new, with what I would categorize as strip commercial. And there's literally no developed city park space up there. So that leads us into the hub, which will be ultimately developed city park space.
Sorry.
No problem. Basically a 3.5 acre site, kind of in the heart of the neighborhood up there. In terms of project goals, two major goals. The first is to meet the social and recreational and resource needs of that neighborhood, as well as attract our broader community to that site. And another goal is to have the hub serve as what I'll call stabilizing catalyst, hopefully spurring new investment up there, as well as enhancing property values without displacing our current residents. So we've been at this a while. We've been engaging our community, the neighborhood around the hub, in creative and new ways over the past 2+ years. We heard loud and clear what we think the neighborhood and community wants, and then our final design, we hope, reflects what we heard in terms of desired amenities and services at the hub. So just quickly talking about kind of the phasing approach. So just to orientate people, Fishhatch is kind of out of the picture on the right, running perpendicular. This is Traceway Drive. Leopold School is just up here on Post Road. Our golf course, the Nine Springs Golf Course, is down here to the south. So we basically created a phase 1 and a phase 2. Phase 1 is what we'll talk about today. That's the blue on the north side of Traceway Drive. I would categorize that as enhanced park space, and we'll talk about what that means. And then phase 2 is more of a traditional, what I'll call kind of community or neighborhood center. And phase 2 is a few years out. But in terms of major phase 1 components, I would kind of talk about 4 components. What I'll call community or park building, which I think is kind of a new model for buildings at our community parks. The second big piece is what we're calling an outdoor covered hard court. That could also serve as an ice rink in the winter. So that would really allow for year-round recreation and social gathering elements, and we'll show you some images of that. The third piece is kind of a catch-all. We're talking, playground, yard games area, and basic areas to socialize and just kind of hang out. And then the fourth piece, which we'll talk about in more detail, and I think is probably of interest to this body, is what we're calling an all-wheels track, serving pretty much any type of wheeled recreational device, whether it's bikes, skateboards, or scooters. We feel this is a unique feature, not just in our city park system, but also regionally as well. And then just in terms of next steps, again, we're kind of going out on the road in February and March, talking to all our committees, just making sure everyone's up to speed on what's coming. And then next week, and then over the next couple of weeks, we'll talk with both our park commission and our council and get specific direction on on budgeting and costs. And then come spring, we will go out to bid for construction and start breaking ground. And I just want to point out, with this committee and everyone else we've talked to, to make sure this hub is a success in implementation, it's about continuing and maintaining partnerships. So again, we're glad to be here today to talk to the bike committee about the hub project. So in terms of a final design, I just want to give a quick overview. So this is actually the site. Bear with me here. Okay, so again, we're talking Traceway Drive, kind of down here on the south. Okay, so yeah, Traceway Drive, obviously parking lot to accommodate driving visitors. Hopefully we get people biking and walking to the site as well. This is that outdoor covered area I was talking about, and we'll see more pictures of that. This is that community building, and we'll talk more about what's in there. This is kind of a pedestrian, again, socializing seating area. We're envisioning a fire pit, just kind of places to hang out, congregate. And then we'll have a playground over here with some shade elements. And then again, the feature that I'd like to talk more about in detail is this pump track. So again, you can see that takes up quite a bit of the site, and we'll talk more about that. And then to the right here, you just see some representative images of how the site will ultimately look. So pump track. And I just want to be clear, I'm not the expert on this. We actually are engaging folks from IMBA, which is kind of a nationally recognized mountain biking planning group. So they have done the design on this. They're not here today, but I'll do my best to kind of relay their work. And I do want to point out that IMBA is also, they were the designers for the pump track at Leopold Park in City of Madison, just not too far away from this site. So as we started talking with them about planning this site, we wanted to make sure this site was unique and not repetitive in terms of what's at Leopold. So we feel like between this site and the Leopold site, they'll both complement each other, and we'll really have that nice kind of node of bike features and parks in a fairly close proximity. So basically, again, Traceway Drive is kind of down here. You would enter the pump track off of the Traceway Drive sidewalk path area. And this is, I think the term we're using is a shred walk. So it serves as an access point, but it also serves as a feature. Kind of envision, I guess, probably something like this on the left here. Maybe not quite that extreme, but just kind of a rolling feature where you could get into the heart of the pump track, but there's also enough on there to keep you entertained. So you could have skateboards, scooters, bikes, all just kind of fooling around on this part of the pump track. And then once you're past that, you get into the heart of the pump track itself. I think we're envisioning this as kind of a beginner element. And then these loops as more intermediate or advanced, type features. And I do want to point out, this whole pump track concept, we think it's a good idea on a lot of levels. The idea originated with the Bike Fitchburg group some years ago. They had, I think, a mobile pump track. And as we started talking about the hub with them, we thought a permanent pump track would make a ton of sense at this site. And then I think, secondly, obviously, a pump track kind of accentuates the Fitchburg as a bike city. I know you all are the bike committee and are talking about continuing to enhance biking in our city, and I think this feature does that. And then the third thing here is really about, again, just that uniqueness of the feature, both within our city park system and regionally. So we really feel like this will be a draw, not just to the neighborhood, but to the broader community as well. And then again, you see some representative images. I think what's important to note here is we're talking hard surface. You'll see some dirt pictures here, but that's not what we're thinking. We're thinking paved. And I think for a lot of reasons, we're proposing that. Up front, there might be a little bit more cost, but in terms of long-term maintenance and keeping the feature up to speed, so to speak, pavement just makes a lot more sense. And we can certainly circle back to this, but I just want to quickly give you an overview of the other three elements as well. So quickly looking at a floor plan for that community building. Again, this is Traceway Drive here. We're envisioning community rooms, some office space, restrooms, obviously, storage, and then a warming kitchen to serve both that playground area, or outdoor picnic area, as well as our indoor meeting rooms as well. And this just kind of gives you to the left here a bird's eye view of that hard court. So you can see how it could be set up for both basketball, pickleball, or whatever type of events that we'd like to have up there. And then just moving into some renderings. This is again a street view of that outdoor structure. Again, a covered feature. You can see how it kind of lays out. I'll just run through some other renderings here. That's a winter picture. Obviously, we're hoping to get an ice rink up there. So I think, kind of a year-round multi-use facility. Just trying to find out front of the building here. Yeah, and this is the community building we talked about. Again, Traceway Drive, kind of that pedestrian spaces, congregating spaces, our playground. Our pump track would be kind of off to the background here and to the right. But hopefully that gives you kind of a good sense of the site. And then just some additional images. And then we have an interior of the building as well. And I know you guys are pretty strict on time, so I will, I think, quit talking there. And if there's time for any questions or comments, I would be happy to take them.
Questions for Wade?
Steve's got one.
Yeah, to be clear, I think that if you're going to do all wheels, it has to be paved because small wheels don't work with natural surfaces.
Correct.
The rendering shows black for the shred walk and brown for the rest. But to be clear, this will all be asphalt.
Yeah, and Scott, you could chime in too, but I think the shred walk is going to be what's called chip seal, and it's a type of pavement. I think it's cheaper and more durable than other methods. And then I think these loops will be not chip seal. Scott, I don't know if you have anything to chime in on that.
No, that's accurate, but I would just add a general comment that the folk they were really interested in an entrance, designated entrance at both Traceway and up by the parking lot, so we could provide signage and information and those kinds of things, and that the facility would be enclosed, whether it be fencing or something like that, but it would be definitely a controlled area in regards to access and people staying in that area. Certainly adjacent to the playground, we wouldn't want kids to be running past the bikers and so forth, but that just a general design feature.
The trails are all one way, right?
They are. Yep. They've again, these guys have done this before, and they've created it so there won't be any conflicts of, ingress and egress. So yep, that's all been accounted for.
Will there be a bike repair stand?
Yeah, good question. So just so folks know, Ceres, our biking group, our bike company in Fitchburg, is a partner on this. We're still working out exactly what their role is, but they've been pretty much involved with this from day one. And Ann Christensen is their bike foundation manager. And I've been pretty much constant communication with her about this project. And yeah, we've talked about some of those things. I guess what I would call more bike infrastructure elements, stuff like the Dolly Bike Hub, things we have up there in terms of a little repair station, and even the point of maybe some storage. For if kids don't have bikes, we could have a little fleet up there somewhere. So yeah, and I've talked with Phil, even about a potential B-cycle location. So I think to the degree that we can fit in complementary bike elements, we're all about that. And certainly if the committee has specific thoughts on that, we'd be happy to take them. One constraint is site size. We are packing in a lot on the site, and that's good. It's an urban site, and it warrants that. But at some point, space will become a little bit of a premium. So,
and maybe just a general comment, if I might. We really, from the beginning, the success of this entire space is going to be the programming of it and the management of it. So certainly we, bike rodeos and events, which is really, we as a city are kind of limited in the capacity. So that, again, as Wade alluded to, is a partnership with programming and this group, and from a bigger 50,000 foot view, I guess the Parks Department, they provide the physical amenities, and we really work in partnership with our stakeholders to provide the programming components of these facilities. So, that's why we're here before you, and we the success of it is going to be, the partnerships and the ability of groups to program and do those kinds of things.
Other questions for Wade? And I'm trying to watch our agenda here and our time. Other questions for Wade and Scott? This is a great work so far, guys. So you have my congrats, but the rest of you have any comments or questions?
No, just
Joe gave you a thumbs up.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Every time I see it, I get more excited, and I just see the potential for a lot of things that I won't mention now because of our time. But I love it. Thank you for all your work.
Good work, folks. I'm going to move us to the next agenda. Oh, go ahead, Andy. Is that Andy Potts?
Yeah. So I just want to say I think it's a great work. But I noticed on the site plan that there's the raised crosswalk kind of across Traceway between the two parcels. And I guess the one question I had was, is there a concern, just kind of given the nature of Traceway and kind of running between two fairly major roads, that there'd be additional traffic calming needed?
Yeah.
Since the whole thing's being bisected by a potentially busy road.
Yeah, good point. And those are conversations we've had with the consultant, and we'll continue to have those. I don't think we've fleshed out all that yet because our phase 2 is still in concept, and we'll kind of circle back and refine that concept. But as we do that, Andy, yeah, we'll definitely check in with Andrew from Public Works and make sure that as those sites become more connected north and south, that people can safely get across Traceway. So yeah.
Well, and even further to the north and getting to the park at Leopold, there's transportation and crossing of roads and those kinds of things.
Good observation. And if you guys could put that in your back pocket as you plan, that's a great idea. Anything else? Yes, Scott. You're muted, Scott.
I was saying goodbye. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Scott and Wade. Phil, we got
Wade.
10 minutes left. The agenda's yours.
I believe we're into the reports of the bike committee. So that starts with the gold team update for the bike friendly community. You got anything there, Mark?
No, I think this committee knows we had a conference call with Amelia January 7th. And I did some minutes back to the group, and the whole bike committee was copied on it. In addition, I think Phil's been a little busy, so we've been consumed with the TAP grant and some other things. And we get back into this, I think, starting in the next month or so. So I think there's more to come is all I'd add right now on that.
Joe, do you have any updates from the council?
No council updates, but I wanted to mention something. I'm working with Bike Fed as well as Green Bikes to do another series of bike repair stand / bike rodeo events. So we're looking at the Tuesdays from April 26th through the end of May, 4 to 6. And it'll be the first 2 at Luna's, the second 2 at King James Park, Pocket Park, and then the third set would be at don't quote me, but I I think we're either looking at doing it at Eagle or at Allied Park. So I'll send more info to folks as it comes. But I'll definitely need volunteers, and we'll be reaching out.
Thank you. Let us know what you need. And also, again, I think we got Steve on board. Keep Mike Fitchburg in that loop as well for support. So
Absolutely.
good work. Okay,
Um,
Phil.
Yep,
you're
a
next.
few things for the staff report to the bike committee. I think one or two of you were aware of this already, but just been communicating with. We got a note from a concerned citizen who volunteers up at the UW Arboretum, the Bike the Berg maps that we have put out to the public for the last few years. I guess there's been an error that none of us caught where it makes it look like the South Arboretum trails are mountain bike trails. So we're looking on getting that addressed. I don't think we've ever gotten any complaints about people riding their bikes in the Arboretum. It's marked pretty well once you get there that it's not bike friendly, but that's just something that we're gonna in conversations with Angela about when and how's the best way to address that. But for the time being, I've pulled the physical Bike the Berg maps from City Hall, and I'm going to probably make some kind of a manual edit to those to make that clear. TAP grant update. Mark's referenced this a couple times. On Friday, I submitted a grant application for the DOT's Transportation Alternatives Program grant. So for bike share, we're looking at implementing a B-Cycle Phase 1 program this year with 5 to 7 stations, depending on how many and what sponsors we get from the local community. We have $50,000 of economic development money from the city that is committed to that effort. But then we're looking at already a Phase 2 expansion in 3 years. So in 2025, we would expand this to another 7 to 10 additional stations. We'd look to get that into more neighborhoods, into more underserved areas of Fitchburg, try to make greater connections between the Fitchburg stations, and also between Fitchburg and Madison's B-Cycle. So we're asking for about $300,000 for that Phase 2 expansion. Because this is a federal grant, it does require 20%. I think this is because it's a federal grant, but it requires 20% matching funds. So that's where we're talking about the money from this ARPA and TID closure potentially being used to help support that local match. We'd also reach out as well to local sponsors to see if they'd be willing to also help contribute to that 20%. But that grant was submitted on Friday. I believe the Greater Madison Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, has a bucket of funds for this. And if we're not funded from theirs, then they would still pass our application along to the state. And then the state has funding allocated to each region. So we have, I believe, 2 different opportunities to get funded through this. And we're pretty optimistic that this is a strong program concept, and that it should be looked on pretty favorably. So that would be huge to be able to get that funded from the DOT. I think that Phase 2, the cost of the bikes and docks is such that Phase 2 is pretty dependent on getting this grant, or if not this one, another one in the future. So really looking forward to hearing back on this one. A third one, I realized I forgot to give specifics on this when we were talking about the ARPA and TID closure funding. There are going to be 2 public hearings for this if you're interested in attending either one. Tuesday, February 8th, and then Tuesday, March 22nd. Joe, would February 8th be the one that is more set for public comment and input, or is that March? Like, what do you know what the general nature of each meeting is going to be?
Can I pull out my email first just to have the schedule in front of me? Okay.
Sure. I'll go on to my last item to give you a little time there. The last one for the staff report is I went out yesterday, collected first round of data from the TrafX trail counters that have been put up around the city. So I still will need to go out at some point and calibrate and really make sure that all the numbers are as accurate as possible. But the initial numbers that I got are pretty strong. Let's see, for 21 days in December and the first 30 days of January, between 7 different stops, we got a total of 20,000 unique hits on each counter, or 20,000 between the 7 counters total. So the Cannonball and Military Ridge, Cannonball Trail and Military Ridge Trail near the roundabout, each one had over 2,000 unique hits on the counter this month. So averaging just over 70 per day, which is pretty solid for January, even if it's been not quite as cold as they usually are. Definitely want to make sure that the calibration is as accurate as possible, but also I'm really looking forward to seeing what the numbers look like when we get into even warmer months. Really optimistic that this is going to help with our response to the bike league on total ridership numbers in Fitchburg. This makes me think that we can make a strong case that our numbers are a lot higher than the 0.75% they were working with for our last application.
Okay, thanks, Phil. Anything else from your side?
So Joe, for those two meetings?
I'll answer your question. So there's the only difference between the two public hearings is one will be like right after the mayor's plan has been released, and the other one will be after Alder amendments have been released. So, you know, essentially my interpretation of it is like once we all sort of put in what our amendments are going to be, this is the public's opportunity to weigh in and, you know, either advocate for or against, you know, anything that might be new or proposed.
So Joe, I think you know our priorities. We talked about them today. So if you can advocate for us as it gets there, it'd be greatly appreciated.
Of course.
All right. Yeah, that's everything that I've got, Mark.
Okay, we got a couple minutes left. Steve, you have a brief update from Bike Fitchburg, please.
Steve, you're muted.
How about now?
That's good.
All right, so we're getting ready to do our bike parking survey census update. This is an example that I'm sharing. This is section 3, which is includes Fish Hatchery Road from McKee up to Greenway Cross. And you can see the different zoning districts on the city zoning map. What we're looking for is volunteers to adopt a section and go out and check the bicycle parking in commercial, multifamily, mixed use, and park zoning districts. So going to my
Looks like you muted yourself again.
Steve, you're muted.
All right, now I'm back. Can you see the zoning district map again? Sorry about the technical difficulties.
Yep. You're muted.
I've got to jump off to another meeting.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Okay.
Thanks, Andy. Have a good day.
I'm going to
Steve,
start.
Okay, Steve,
we're
you're back
not looking
again.
at what we need to see here.
I know you don't want to see my driver's license.
No, I'm taking a quick screenshot.
Well, again, we're running out of time. Can you give us a bridge update without the map, please?
Yep.
And then
so we're looking for volunteers to do a section to update the parking map. You have to visit. I really don't have enough time to go into this. With respect to the greenway system, I've been doing estimates on the cost, and we're working on a couple of grant possibilities, and I'm working with Scott and Wade to include the Fitchburg Greenway system into the park and open space plan update, which is what the mayor wants to see. We are working on a business outreach program that I owe Mark some work on, promoting bicycle-friendly business applications, proper bicycle parking, and bicycle benefits discounts. And the last thing is I wanted to let you know that the National Bike Summit, which you can attend virtually for fairly inexpensively, is the March 27th to 30th. That's put on by the League of American Bicyclists. So if there's anybody on the bicycle committee who's willing to work on the parking census, or if you know anybody like a family member or somebody who has time to work on that, please let me know. The main thing you need is a way to get around. Generally, we're doing this in the winter time, so I suggest a car and a smartphone camera that can take pictures with geotags on it.
Okay. Anything else since Steve?
Not at 3
Okay.
after 9.
Well, sorry. I mean, we got a lot done today. But Steve, I'll volunteer. So just let me know where I can help you with this, with the parking survey as you get down to it. I'm back in town next week. So is there anything else for the good of the committee here before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Andy already left. Okay, hearing none. We are a few minutes past 9. I apologize. It's time for me to go ride here in Sarasota. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I had a move and a second. Who made the motion? Miranda seconded it.
Oh, I'll move. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll
Miranda
second.
made the, okay. Miranda seconded by Angie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Second, same sign, if you know. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And again, I think we're doing a lot of good things. So